Adaptability in the restaurant industry, coming up right here on the Leadership Voice. Welcome to the Leadership Voice. I'm your host, Jay Barbuto. Today's show is about adaptability in the restaurant industry. Joining us will be Roshan Mendis, co-founder and Senior VP of Strategic Implementation and Restaurant Growth at Lazy Dog Restaurants, a group of upscale, casual family dining restaurants started in Orange County in 2003 and has grown tremendously, approaching almost 40 restaurants across 7 states. Roshan started his restaurant career at the age of 16 as a busboy and a host at Mimi's Cafe. He soon worked his way up to management and progressed, and at age 25, he became one of the principal founders of Lazy Dog Restaurants. Welcome to the show, good friend, Roshan Mendis.
Hi, Jay. Thank you for having me. I am very excited to be able to come on and tell our story. And thank you for the opportunity. And thank you for being such a wonderful partner and friend through the years through the Center of Leadership at Cal State Fullerton.
Great. Roshan, thank you again for joining us today. We have an important message to share with our viewers. Could you talk a little bit about Lazy Dog and what has been the key to its success over these first 2 decades of its existence?
Sure. Jay, to give you probably the quickest and simplest answer, I've got to boil it down to a couple of things. I think we've been successful because of our values and our relationships we have with our Lazy Dog family. When you think about the Lazy Dog family, that includes all the individuals that really touch our brand. So as the years went by, we realized the why. As Simon Sinek would say, why we exist. At the end of the day, why we exist is to nourish connections, and to nourish connections with our not only our teammates, but also our guests and our communities. And we realized that that's who made up the Lazy Dog family. So I think the understanding that why really gave us some clarity as to what our values were. And what at Lazy Dog, we provide warm, small town hospitality. We create experiences that allow people to enjoy that moment. We love sharing our passions, whether it's for amazing food, craft beer, or dogs. And we found out that what that does was our mutual passions created a common ground. And as you know, Jay, common ground allows us to build incredible relationships, right? That's why we've had such a great relationship for so many years. So the values we built these relationships on, whether it was with our guests or our teammates or the communities, they all came back. That's what we realized. They were continuing to come back, and they continued to come back because they knew that we cared. We genuinely cared about the experience that they were having. And that was where we were able to build that loyal family base that ultimately helped us grow through the years. And it's been fun to kind of go back and understand that after the fact today.
Yeah, I think there was an expression. I don't remember exactly how the expression goes, but you can probably share. It's something about turning customers into regulars. How do we describe that at Lazy Dog?
We want to make sure that we make it regular out of every single one of our guests. And making regulars is not about getting them to come back and spend money. It's about those deep connections that you make with each and every single guest. And when we talk about making regulars, that doesn't apply to the guest alone. It applies to that teammate even more than it applies to the guest, because that teammate's got to want to get up in the morning and come back to work and be excited about it. That's where it all begins, right? So that's when we think about the Lazy Dog family. Everyone's got to be a regular. Everyone's got to be excited about our brand, and that's what it's all about. That's what it comes down to when we talk about nourishing connections.
Yeah, anybody that's visited one of your terrific restaurants has picked up on the culture that you've created there. And so everything you've described, it helps us understand the culture that we experience whenever we visit one of your restaurants. Could you talk a little bit about how Lazy Dog Restaurants was able to adapt during the pandemic? Now, specifically, what I mean is this. I know that in the restaurant industry, and for example, at Lazy Dog restaurants, takeout, to go orders, it might only be like 10 or 9% of the typical revenue. So now suddenly when the restaurants get closed and things, how was Lazy Dog Restaurant able to survive or rethink what it means to exist in the community?
Wow, that's a loaded question, Jay. 2020 started off with this solid plan. We had a plan to achieve some healthy sales goals. As I think back, that Thursday in March, I had just landed from Colorado. And I came from speaking at a summit with our youngest leaders. And the things that I was talking about was 20% growth. We were talking about the 7 new restaurants we were going to open this year. We were talking about the 1,500 new jobs we were going to provide across the country. The week before that, I was in Washington, D.C., opening up our newest market. And here we are, the very next day after that trip. We had to make some tough decisions, and the decisions to shut down dining rooms, to the decision to furlough 5,000 teammates across the country, unimaginable, right? And that really forced us to become the takeout only business that you're talking about. And that first week, we went from one of the largest average unit volume concepts in the country to less than 10% in sales. And, immediately that meant we've got to go into triage mode because we realized that our takeout business is all we had. And so we said, okay, well, what do we need to do? We need to start focusing on that business that we have at hand. So immediately we looked at ways to make that better. We started a new online ordering platform. We created frictionless curbside pickup experiences for our guests. We rolled out our new takeout packages that came out immediately after that. And, we knew it was important for guests looking for a touchless payment experience. So got that going. And that really became the starting point for us to be able to climb back.
Wow, that's amazing. So what are some of the other things you folks did to actually make this all come together? It just seems like such an incredible shift from the way the restaurant was developed, so much about the customer experience in the restaurant. How were you able, what were some of the other things that you've had to pivot with?
Jay, we got through those early days, and then we began to transition the business, and we started digging deep, and had to fall back on who we were from day one, and what our values were, and honestly, everything pointed back to that core belief, which was nourishing connections, and now more than ever, we had to stay 100% committed to supporting our Lazy Dog family. To break it down a little bit, Jay, maybe I'll take you through kind of what we did for our teammates, our guests, and our communities. Starting with our teammates, they are the lifeline. They're the lifeline to the brand, and we know that. And the deep connections we had with them, the trust they had built with us, really drove us to work harder than ever to bring them back to work. That was a simple mission, right? We provided, we did things like providing them with food at our cost. They were going through a hard time as well, whether they were furloughed or not. We gave them food at our cost. We covered their medical costs. The Lazy Dog Teammate Care Fund was able to take care of our teammates affected by the pandemic. But most importantly, Jay, we started to see something really cool. We started seeing the teammates that were continuing to work during the pandemic. We started seeing them work with a sense of purpose. And, we all had something in common when we were working, that we all wanted to try and get our furloughed teammates, furloughed family back to work as soon as possible. So it wasn't about money. It was about collectively, what do we focus on? What do we need to do next to accomplish that goal of getting them back to work? So that was a little bit about the teammates, our family members. That next prong is probably the guest we had to focus on and say, hey, what do we need to do with our guests? And there are several things that we started to implement, things like an affordable family meal. All that uncertainty, whether I'm going to be working next week or not, was within all of our communities, right? So we knew we had to go in with something affordable that people will be able to latch on to and be able to order. Then people were starting to get bored a little bit. And we thought, okay, we've got to create some fun. So we created some fun themed meal kits, giving them something to do, things like barbecue nights and pizza nights, and even had this fun, cool family Pop-Tart making kit that they were able to take home. Those were some fun things. And then we started seeing some shortages, as you all did, I'm sure, in the grocery stores. And it was interesting because the shortages were different from state to state. So we started zeroing in on what those shortages were, and we created some home essential kits that the consumers could use at home. Another thing that we did, we turned our parking lots into drive-throughs. Those same drive-throughs a couple of months later, they ended up becoming dining rooms. Some of these tents that we put up are seating up to 200 plus people. Incredible, right? Another thing that we did was we brought back TV dinners. TV dinners came back and they were cool again. And the guests loved it. They loved this affordable $10 single frozen comfort classic that we were providing them. That was another prong that we were able to provide for our guests. And then we have cool membership programs that were already implemented. We kept delivering on those membership programs. We have a fun beer kit that kept coming out. We had a dog kit for our Peppers Pack members and our Lazy Dog Beer Club members. So all those continued for the guests, and they were having fun with it, and we were having fun with it. And then we took a look at that third prong within our family, which is the communities. And immediately we saw a need that we needed to take care of our frontline workers and our local shelters. And we decided, hey, let's start feeding them. So we started feeding them across the country. And to our delight, our guests that were seeing this, they also wanted to get involved. So they started contributing to the cause. And guess what? It just allowed us to do that much more. And I'm so proud today to be able to say that we provided over 35,000 meals across the country within our communities to frontline workers and local shelters. So those are some of the things that we dived into when it came to taking care of our Lazy Dog family, Jay, during this pandemic.
It's an amazing story because a lot of companies, when they're faced with these kinds of situations, they immediately think of themselves. They say, how do I survive? What can I do to get through it? And the way Lazy Dog got through it was by focusing its energy on those that mean the most to Lazy Dog, by focusing on your employees, your teammates, by focusing on your guests, and by focusing on the community and saying, well, what are the needs of our employees? What are the needs of our guests? And what are the needs of the community? And focusing rather than on your own survival or on what's best for you, but focusing on how you can help and make a difference. It's such a great message for really everyone as they start thinking about what is the key to getting through maybe difficult times or challenging times, is that you continue to meet the needs of those that you serve. And that's really an exciting story. So as we look ahead, Roshan, we look through the crystal ball and we think about the new normal, where things will be when the future. How do you imagine things will be, and how do you imagine Lazy Dog restaurants staying ready to impact whatever that new normal looks like?
Yeah, Jay, the new normal for us is that we have an organization ready to take on some big challenges. And, we're better at problem solving today than ever, right? We learned that we have some of the most resilient teams within our company. We went from a triage mode to transition mode in that business, as I talked about. And now based on what we knew, we had to leverage it and transform things for the long term. So, we knew we couldn't settle at this point because, we had to figure out what that next thing is and next thing was. So, we continue to adapt to change. Times of uncertainty are still out there. We continue to innovate. And as we think about our new takeout guests, and we want to look well beyond the pandemic, because the takeout business is here to stay, and it's a part of that new normal. So we're getting ready to launch a new concept called Jolene's Wings by Lazy Doc. Jolene's Wings is a very cool and current wing concept that's for online and delivery. Yet again, we take an area that we have a lot of passion for, and we're building it into a concept of its own. And we feel that it helps the brand reach a broader audience. It caters to our younger consumer, our Black and Hispanic consumer. And, this type of focused innovation is really what has helped us win, and will ultimately transform the business long after the pandemic. We've got to be able to learn from these situations and really look ahead and maneuver through them. So, we're looking ahead. We've just started our plans for opening restaurants in 2021. We've started hiring new managers with the sales that we've been able to bring back. And we continue to look for those opportunities to positively impact the communities. Because ultimately it's truly a privilege to be a part of our communities we do business in and that we're welcomed into.
Yeah, it sounds like not only has your organization been able to stay adaptable enough to make the changes it needed to make, it sounds like there's also now a readiness. There may have always been a readiness, but there certainly is a readiness for future changes, and a readiness to pivot, and a readiness to adapt to the changing needs moving forward.
Absolutely.
So what advice would you give, Roshan, a business owner, a company owner, a restaurant owner who is facing major challenges like the pandemic causes? What would be your right out of the gate advice that you would give somebody who's running a company facing something like this?
Jay, I look at it as it's bigger than the pandemic or the moment you're in. I would say that you have to figure out what's important to you as an organization, as a leadership team. You've got to be able to align your entire organization with those values that you believe in. When our personal values align with the organizational values, that common ground really elevates us to produce our best work. And I always look to hire for those values that we believe in. We always look to make decisions regardless of a pandemic or not, we make those decisions through that decision filter. And for us, it was all about nourishing connections, as I said, connections with those three groups, the guests, the teammates, and the communities. And staying true to that was very important to what we were doing. And, that really has helped us continue through this. And I believe that's the focus that would be needed from leaders as they face adversity during challenging times. You've got to look at your business and understand your business during those good times, and then build the systems to be able to maneuver through the challenging, difficult times.
Well, now it's time for us to take questions from our live audience. So
Great.
Let's take a look and see what we have. Our first question is from Juliana Sperandio of Ventura Foods. She asks, adaptability is a critical competence for business considering the continuous and fast transformations we all face. How can you best identify that as skill when we hire? how can you develop adaptability into your workforce?
Wow, what a great question. Let's see. I talked a little bit about adapting fast and changing fast during this pandemic. It's a skill that is really learned through life experiences, I think, Jay. It has a lot to do with the environment you grew up in, the organizations you were a part of, the sports teams, being able to teaching you how to juggle many things at the same time. And those type of influences, you've got to be able to understand when you're interviewing someone and really understand if those values align, as we talked about, right? I think you also have to include, once they are hired on, you've got to be able to include your teams to be a part of the decision-making process. That gets you that quick adaptability to decisions. And that is something that we saw as we were maneuvering through this pandemic. We started communicating at a high level, so they started understanding our vision much faster. And we were doing things that we used to take 6 months to do, like things like menu rollouts, within 2 weeks because of that. My short answer on the hiring piece is hire for aligned values.
Yeah, hire for aligned values, and then the quality of your communications allows you to create that continuous readiness for adaptability and change. What a great perspective on this. Our second question comes from Sherelle Jackson from BPM. Sherelle asks, as we approach the winter and COVID does not seem to be under control, what is the plan to maintain operations when our current climate requires outdoor seating and rain is not outdoor friendly?
You're absolutely right, Cheryl. Not only rain, but we're dealing with snow as well, right? So we're really focused in on those markets that are going to start snowing here soon, DC and Colorado and so on. But first we've got to keep our focus on the takeout portion of the business. That the uncertainty we're talking about with climate is just one piece of it, right? So as I said, between Jolene's Wings and a really cool new family meal that we've just put together that's launching, a new menu that we just launched in anticipation of the winter months, is part of what we're doing. Then we're looking at things like partitions. How do we put some partitions within the restaurants and get ready to seat inside? Because as you may know, most of California is still shut down. Some of the other states are at 50% maybe capacity. So how do we partition